Greaves, what did you score this remake?
What did I start with that? All right,
Please.
9.5.
That's amazing.
It's great.
Jeez.
It is more than I dreamed of, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, like that Resident Evil remake for the GameCube is one of my favorite games of all time. And I liked the original version of 2 better than the original version of 1.
Okay.
So I'm like, the stakes were high for me, like going in. I'm like, they're going to F this up somehow.
Yes.
Because Resident Evil has not been the pinnacle it once was.
But after 7, it was fun to see enthusiasm of like,
Yeah.
I think they're doing the right thing here.
Yeah, it's moving in the right direction. And then everything we saw leading up to this was great. And then it was even better than I expected.
Resident Evil 7 was the Terminator 1 to this game's Terminator 2.
Ooh, that's a good.
Hold on.
Hold on. Can I go redo my review?
That's a bold claim.
I got to know.
I'll say it.
Leo, were you alive when the first Resident Evil 2 came out?
We were birthed on the same day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like Claire and Leon.
Well, Leon. There
you
it
go.
is.
Close. That's crazy. So you're loving this game too, Leo?
Yes, I am.
What do you love about it?
I had never played the originals, and I got on the series with 4, liked 4 and 5, defended parts of 6 even.
Wow.
7.
We're a live one here.
7 had a lot of interesting things about it, and this game really, to me, seems like the best parts of 7. All of the exploration and puzzles and the feeling of it, the claustrophobia and the really haunted house vibe of being trapped in this place. Except the combat is better. And the third-person stuff works really well.
Okay, because it harkens back to 4. Does it feel at all like 4?
No.
No. Why is
Yeah,
it?
I would say, well, in the sense that it's a third-person shooter, but like the shooting does not feel like 4, which I think is where you're probably
That
gonna go.
moment in time where you have your gun drawn and you're aiming at a zombie's head and you can't line it up and you feel like time has stopped and
Yeah.
it's slowly shuffling forward towards you and you're shooting and missing, that is like Resident Evil 4 where you're just like panicking, yet it's like seriously like the steamroller from Austin Powers coming at you to run you over.
right.
And the bullets matter so much. Every
you're-
time you
exactly,
miss, it's
you're-
just a dagger in your heart.
Backing up and you hit a wall, and it's like, yeah, it does a really good job of like adding to that tension.
Reiner, you're digging it too?
Yeah, it's super cool. I was taken aback by Leon's new character design. He used to look exactly like Leonardo DiCaprio, right? Like to a degree, and now he's like, I didn't even know it was him at first. And I was
It's just
like,
Mike Mahardy, right, from GameSpot, former GI intern. I always
I don't know
think
who
of
that
him
is.
when I say it. Oh, I understand, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
I was looking at the original game a little bit too. Actually, I watched like the first episode of our old Super Replay of it, which is fun because Tim's playing it, and Reiner, you're on that first episode too. And like Leon's character model is rough, like especially in those cutscenes. Whereas like Claire, I think like actually holds up pretty well overall. But Leon was like, oof, he was rickety even back then. Looking at
Pull
that
the
thing.
camera back.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they did sometimes.
So it's everything you want. It's perfect.
I think it is. Like, I mean, they even do stuff that I did not expect them to do. That I don't want to spoil things, but it's just like the level of tension they add to this series is amazing. Like, because I thought 7 was pretty scary as well, and they bring that stuff into Resident Evil 2. Because as much as I liked Resident Evil 2, I didn't find it like a scary game back in the day. But this one like is scary at times, and more than scary, it's just like foreboding and like intense. Like there's a lot of like moments that just like super intense where I would finish running through a hallway, dodging monsters, and I'd get to a place and I would just like exhale. I'd be like, all right, I did it. Like, and it's just like such a rush to play.
And it feels unscripted. It's less of you go into this room and there's a scripted jump scare that happens, and it's more they've made enemies with really interesting behaviors that react to what you do in a way that is hard to predict and scary.
And you just have to remember, like, okay, these lickers are in this hallway. I need to avoid that if I can.
Right. That's the other thing, is all the zombies and all the special infected, like the lickers, they stay where you leave them if you don't finish them off. Or if you have a big battle with a licker, its corpse is going to be lying on the ground every time you run through that area
right.
Oh,
forever. And it really does create this vibe of I am trapped in this place for this night, and it's very scary.
And sometimes you don't know, like, okay, did I take that zombie out? Did I take that licker out? Or is he playing possum? And like, is he going to jump out at me? Because sometimes they will, and sometimes you did take them out completely. So it's like that game of like, is this hallway as clear as I think it is?
Right.
Yeah, back in the day, you would enter a new hallway and the camera would limit your vision. Like you would see the front half of it, but you couldn't see what was in the back half, and you got scared from that, right? Like there was tension there. Now they use lighting in a really interesting way where you'll go into a darkened area and you just have your flashlight and you start hearing things and you're like, oh God, what is in here? It's not something's there. It's just like Leo's saying, like there are crazy things in this game that you wouldn't expect.
Every time I hear something, I pray it's just a zombie and not one of the scarier things in this game.
That's the thing from even playing like the one-shot demo. Like when your flashlight isn't on something, it is dark. It is tough to see. Like you need that flashlight to understand what is happening in your surroundings.
It looks really good in HDR. Like if you have that. Like,
Oh, okay.
I recommend using HDR.
I would say
use the technology you have.
I would say that's the big difference between the old one and new is just the lighting.
HDR.
Like those games, I mean, those games were like well lit. Like you could see everything, and now it's like they don't want you to see hardly anything unless you have your flashlight out.
It's funny
It is
too.
very scary.
Polygon actually had a story about the creation of the original Resident Evil 2, which is an excerpt from this guy's book and stuff. But they're talking about like that legendary Resident Evil 1.5, right, where they're trying to make Resident Evil 2 for a while, then rebooted it. And one of the reasons they rebooted it was like they were going for more of an action-focused game that was not connected to the first game necessarily at all, and also like the streets were just like brightly lit, everything was brightly lit. And then Kamiya, the director of 2, he said from this Polygon article, Resident Evil 1.5, it was truly a piece of S. It was boring, devoid of vision, and a poor excuse for a horror game. It's very fun. So did they make bigger changes than just like little things here and there? Does it feel one-to-one?
I would say it's not one-to-one at all. In fact, like I almost wish they
1 to
didn't
2.
call it a remake because there's more work put into it than there's remakes like the Spyro trilogy that just came out not too long ago. Like that in my mind is a remake. This is like from the ground up. They moved around environments. They added environments. There's like the enemy behavior is different. The gameplay is different. Like I don't know. Like in my mind, it's on the level of like the Tomb Raider reboot. Like that level of difference between like the original Tomb Raider and yes, like it is that much of a different game.
But there's no like environments they're reusing for the Tomb Raider reboot compared to the original Tomb Raider 1.
They might have had some environments the same, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
It feels like
communicate.
I get
that this
that.
is a completely different.
Doesn't
game.
it feel more like the Resident Evil 1 to Resident Evil remake? Isn't that the obvious analogy? But it's more than that even?
It never feels like it was easy for them to do Resident Evil 2 again. Easier than it would be to make a new game, you know?
Right.
Yeah, they could have made a new game and it would have been as much work as they did put into this.
Okay.
That was my big question is like, was this story really worth retelling?
I don't know.
You know, it's like, it's cool because it feels so different, but it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I don't know if I needed this tale in my life again. Like, this is important.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not really.
I hear that, but
What
it's cool.
So Resident Evil 2 has a confusing structure.
Mm-hmm.
I watched like a friend's brother play through the entire game, but it was a long time ago, and so I always get confused. But there's a scenario, a B scenario. Can you explain just how this game's structure works? Because it's so weird.
Oh yeah. Well, they called it the zapping system back in the day, and it was the original PlayStation had 2 discs. There was a Claire disc and a Leon disc.
Yeah.
So whichever one you played first, you could play the other disc, and like things you did in your playthrough of Leon, let's say, like you might be able to like leave certain items for Claire. Like she would have access to them if you didn't pick them up, or like unlock certain things that she would find unlocked in her playthrough.
Okay.
So the 2 campaigns kind of communicated. This game has a second run, is what they call it.
Hang
It's
on. First of all, is the zapping still there?
so they don't call it zapping. And they said when they announced it that they were not doing the zapping game system.
Okay.
But we're like, well, how's the 2 campaigns going to work then? So the 2 campaigns they have in this game, you can, whichever character you choose is kind of like the main campaign you do. And then you can do a second run with the other character. And like things are completely reworked. So like you approach the police station from a different place. Like you enter from a different place. You get items in a different order, which changes your path through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then add to that, both characters have different stories that take them to different places at certain times. So the middle of the game is completely different for each character anyway. So you add all that together and you're like, it feels like a completely, I mean, I don't want to say different game in terms of like you're still in the police station, but it definitely feels different enough that it's worth playing a second time.
Okay.
The way they talk about it in game, when the little pop-up shows up that you've unlocked the second run, it's felt like a new game plus to me, because it said parts of the middle and the ending are changed, so it's like, okay, I'm kind of playing the game again with a different character, but I'll get
Right.
the true ending or whatever. But it's really just, it's the second half of the game.
Yeah,
it's
that's
you
how I
need to
see
play
it.
a second run to get the full story. There's
It
a
feels
ton
like
of
the
new
second
stuff
half
there.
of the game.
Really?
And all the weapons you're getting are different.
Yeah.
Which is super interesting. Even if they're in the same place, it's a different weapon. It's like just a remixed version where you're solving puzzles in different order and a different story is playing out.
They actually start you out with this really cool quick fire gun in Claire's game because that's how I did the second round with Claire. But yeah, it was really cool and fun to use. Like it fires off weapons just like bah, 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 bah.
It
Like,
pops heads really fast because it's the 45 ACP instead of
Yeah,
9
you
millimeter.
burn through ammo with that, but it's a lot of fun to use.
Is this game going to kick my ass?
I don't think so. It is a traditional
Ryder's nodding.
survival horror game. Like, well, in the sense that it's a traditional survival horror game.
Uh-huh.
It's ammo is scarce.
Yeah,
health
don't
can be
fire
scarce.
bullets.
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, you can totally make it through.
Oh,
I don't
no.
think it's not like Dark Souls like hard, but yeah, you need to like manage your inventory well and like know like, well, I don't have enough ammo, so maybe I should just try to run through this area and not kill everybody.
It's really impressive how well they're able to make you feel like you're always just riding the edge. You're running around with no health and no bullets, but you're still managing to barely make it through and get just enough bullets
Yeah.
to kill only the enemies you need to kill and then run past the other ones.
I don't know how they like managed to like balance it so well because like the
Yeah.
whole game I spent, I felt like I was always about out of stuff.
Right.
And I always felt that way. I never completely ran out, but then I also was never like, oh, I have more than I need. Like I was always just down that edge.
It's kind of the beauty of this series,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Like even going all the way back to the first game, I guess you learn very quickly, like, oh, I better restart because I wasted all my ammo. This game, at least they tell you that like in the opening area where I guess right after the gas station, you're in the streets of Raccoon City and there's like more zombies than you could ever take
yeah.
down. And
Yeah.
you just learn right there, like,
That's a good
I just got
point.
to
That's
run
smart.
and find the path. And then you're kind of conditioned that way when you get inside, like, okay, I got 4 bullets. Can I just leave this zombie? And
or shoot him once just to stun him, shoot him in
Yeah,
the head
and
to
get by
knock him
him.
back while I run past.
Just so you can get past.
Yeah.
That's a good trick.
Reiner, what do you want from Resident Evil 8?
more of 7.
So as it goes forward, that's first person, and then hopefully they use this tech specifically to keep remaking 3 moving on.
Yeah, I think it's as Reeves pointed out, it's kind of interesting because they're going back to something that they made decades ago, but it is built kind of on the ideas of 7, even though it is kind of classic in how it's presented.
Yeah.
But I want them to go back to first person. You know, you always hear developers say like their first game is proof of concept. The second one is where they can really show off their ideas or really experiment and stuff like that. I would like to see that with 8.
This time, the 8th time is where they can really experiment.
Yeah,
and
like
show
just
new
I want to
ideas,
see another one in that vein.
Yeah.
But then give us 3, like remake 3 again in the third person.
Yeah, with this reception, it has to happen.
I think
can't
there
wait
was a
for
rumor
now.
out there actually that they are working on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't know how valid that is, but
I'd be surprised if they didn't do it, but it's a classic case of, hey, if you give a mouse a cookie, like gamers are like, okay, that's great. Yeah, it's everything I wanted. Where's Resident Evil 3? Come on.
Totally. And one thing, I see Reiner's point, and I probably agree with him. I liked elements of the first person camera and all that from 7. One thing I've missed from the series since 4 really is the zombies, and it's kind of nice to see zombies back. It feels like they're always inventing their own monsters, and those can be fun, but it's kind of nice to have classic zombies that you're shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just something about that. And they're hordes, and they're kind of slow and dumb, but even having 2 zombies in a room together, like if they're on opposite sides, they're kind of hard to like line up the shot. Like they can be deadly.
And when they lunge at you, they can do like a 9-foot lunge. They can really close a
Ooh.
gap really quickly.
And a headshot won't take them down.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll put like 2 bullets in their head. It's like, this is not what I learned watching movies.
You'll shoot them 5 times in the head and they'll fall down, and then you'll go to finish them off with 1 more in the head, and you'll shoot it in the head, and it'll just wake the zombie up. And it'll get up and
What
start
have I
fighting you
done?
again.
No.
Oh, good Christ, no.
But at the same time, it's like super satisfying when you like do 3 bullets and like a head explodes.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, that's really good.
Nice. Your reviews on the site.
Yep.
9.5.
Up right now.
Man.
They did it.
Check it out.
Congratulations, Capcom. Jesus Christ. That was just a clip from a larger show called The Game Informer Show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, or GameInformer.com. We take the fun opportunities and exclusive information from Game Informer magazine and boil it into a show that airs every Thursday with exclusive cover story information, developer interviews, a lot of fun stuff. So come love games with us.